Ukraine is celebrating a prisoner exchange which saw more than 200 prisoners of war released by Russia. They include more than 100 members of the Azov battalion hailed as heroes for mounting resistance at a steelworks in Mariupol. In return, Ukraine sent back 55 Russian fighters and a pro-Russian Ukrainian politician who was facing treason charges. 10 foreign fighters, including 5 British nationals, held by Russian-backed forces, have also been freed. Our chief correspondent, John Cookson, has the story.
Amid rising tensions, the prisoner swap between Ukraine and Russia was unexpected. Among them, 215 commanders of the Azov battalion, seen here being welcomed by President Zelensky by video link. For weeks, these shattered men led the resistance in the city of Mariupol, holed up in bunkers and tunnels under the giant Azovstal steelworks. They're heroes in Ukraine. As part of the deal, Ukraine freed the pro-Russian Ukrainian politician Viktor Medvedchuk. He was facing treason charges, allegations he strongly denied. Also heading home, 5 Britons held by Russian-backed forces in eastern Ukraine. Their release brokered in part by Saudi Arabia's de facto leader Mohammed bin Salman. Aidan Aslin, John Harding and Sean Pinner were captured while fighting with Ukraine forces. Aslin and Pinner had been sentenced to death in what observers said was a sham trial. But despite the cordiality of the massive prisoner swap, the war in Ukraine rages on. Russian action roundly condemned by the Ukrainian president at the UN General Assembly.
The crime was committed against the dignity of our women and men. The crime was committed against the values that make you and me a community of the United Nations.
On behalf of the General Assembly, I have the honor to welcome
President Biden said Russian action was an affront to the UN Charter.
This war is about extinguishing Ukraine's right to exist as a state, plain and simple, and Ukraine's right to exist as a people. Whoever you are, wherever you live, whatever you believe, that should make your blood run cold.
In Russia, police have arrested hundreds of protesters rallying against the Kremlin's decision to call up thousands of extra troops to fight in Ukraine. Human rights groups put the total at more than 1,300, with the largest numbers arrested in St. Petersburg and Moscow. John Cookson, Arise News.
And John Cookson joins us now from London with more. John, thank you so much for joining us on Newsday. Lovely report as always. How unexpected was this prisoner swap?
Hi, ladies. Great to be on Newsday as always. Well, when I was working for Arise News in Ukraine earlier this year, I, as a journalist, learned that prisoner swaps on a small scale go on clandestinely all the time, 1 here, 2 there. But it's the scale of this prisoner swap which is quite astonishing. 215 Ukrainians and 55 Russians involved in this, and also a number of foreign nationals, including 5 Brits. So it's the scale of it, and it's the unexpected timing of it coming as only yesterday tensions rose considerably between Russia and Ukraine when Russia announced a semi-mobilization of reservists. So extraordinary events, really, which happen, frankly, quite frequently in that part of the world. So the aftermath of it is that those who were involved in the brokering of the deal, and that's Mohammed bin Salman, the de facto ruler of Saudi Arabia, and Tayyip Erdogan, the president of Turkey, are getting quite a lot of kudos out of this. Now, what exactly both sides did, Saudi Arabia and Turkey, isn't clear. It seems, on first reports, that the Turks were involved in the freeing of Ukrainian soldiers, and the Saudis were involved in the release of foreign nationals. And it seems that Mohammed bin Salman, who's known universally as MBS, has a close connection with President Putin, and apparently has been trying to negotiate the release of these men since March. Now, there'll be other quid pro quos in all of this. MBS, of course, the man accused of being behind the murder of the Washington Post journalist Jamal Khashoggi back in 2018 in Istanbul, Turkey. Look, there's another Turkish connection. What is going on here behind the scenes? We'll have to wait and see. MBS getting, as I say, some kudos out of this and helping to re-establish himself on the world stage after those vile accusations about being behind the murder of Khashoggi. So amazing times, really. This prisoner swap, massive in its scale. The timing is unusual, to say the least. And here we have these other players behind the scenes, MBS and Tayyip Erdogan, getting a lot of the kudos for all of this.
Certainly an unexpected development. Now, have the 5 Britons arrived back in the UK?
Yes, they have. They were spirited out of jail in Russian-held territory in Ukraine, and they flew directly to Riyadh, Saudi Arabia, where, as you saw in my report, they were greeted by Saudi officials. Now, overnight, these guys have flown back to London Heathrow, and I'm told, and we haven't seen images yet, but they've now been reunited with their families. They were Aidan Aslin, John Harding, Sean Pinner, Dylan Healy and Andrew Hill. Now, 2 of them, that's Pinner and Asin, had been sentenced to death by pro-Russian forces and were facing the firing squad. So they've had a fantastic escape from in effect, death row. They're now with their families in Bedfordshire, in Nottinghamshire and Devon, and no doubt they'll be giving interviews in due course if they haven't sold their stories to the highest bidder. So they are at home. I have to say that there are still foreign nationals being held by pro-Russian forces in the Donbass region, and even though they are prisoners of war and under the Geneva Convention, they should be allowed visits by the likes of the Red Cross. The Russians have been denying access. So still some more prisoners to be swapped, but no doubt at a strategically important time to both sides, the Russians and the Ukrainians. Perhaps we'll see some more exchange of prisoners. Ladies?
Indeed. Meanwhile, at the UN General Assembly, how tough a time do you think the Russian Foreign Minister Sergei Lavrov will have at the UN today?
He'll get a tough time, that's for sure. President Putin of Russia, not there, of course, as Sergei Lavrov sent in his stead. Lavrov, 72 years old, he's been kicking around the diplomatic scene for decades now and taking a lot of flack, certainly since the Russian invasion in February of Ukraine. Look, he's the kind of grizzled old warrior of a diplomat who can take things as they come. Russia today will be accused by the Americans and by the UK of war crimes and perpetuating an illegal war, and he'll have to listen to all of this criticism. Whether he'll respond or not, we don't know, but the traditional Russian response is to frankly deny everything. Sergei Lavrov regularly saying that Russia never targets civilians, and all these accusations are no more than smears. So it will be tough for him in the special meeting of the Security Council in New York today. But as I say, he's the kind of guy who will no doubt ride out the storm in his own individual way.
So the United Nations has largely been blamed for being ineffective in the Ukraine crisis. Why do you think this is the case?
I think to a large extent it's due to the fact that there are 15 permanent members of the Security Council, 15 members of the Security Council, 5 of those are permanent and 1 of those is Russian. And the Russians have, along with the other 5 permanent members, have a right to veto resolutions as they go through. And so this is really why the UN has, at Security Council level, been largely ineffective. But one has to give the Secretary General Guterres some credit in this, in that he did play a major role in organizing the release of grain ships from the ports of southern Ukraine and getting that much needed grain, wheat, maize, sunflower oil through the Black Sea and the Bosphorus and into the Mediterranean and into parts of the world desperately in need of these supplies. So to answer your question, I think it's because of the Russian veto is the main cause. But behind the scenes, the UN Secretary General has been playing a key role, although he has been criticized for not intervening earlier and perhaps getting involved before the Russians actually invaded Ukraine back in February.
Arise Chief Correspondent John Cookson, thank you so much for joining us on Newsday. We appreciate your time as always.